It's difficult for me to put into words exactly why I feel the way I do about Dead Cells. It should be, by all accounts, a fairly mediocre, uninspired roguelite that does little to change the current formula. But it isn't. This Metroidvania roguelite game is a unique gem from Motion Twin that not only surprised me, but exceeded my expectations. The first thing you're likely to notice about Dead Cells is just how beautiful and fluid the animations are. Every move you make has a feeling of weight and commitment to it without sacrificing the sensation of fast-paced combat the game tries to achieve. This is incredibly important for a Souls-Lite game that relies so heavily on punishing a player's mistakes and shortcomings, which this game does beautifully. Each weapon feels different and has its own mechanics on top of RNG modifiers. The infantry bow does crit damage at short range, rapier crits after rolling, and throwing knives home in on enemies to apply bleed damage. Each weapon has its purpose, making weapon combos an important element of the game. A good example would be the ice bow. On its own, it does very little damage. However, using it to freeze enemies can provide you with openings for things such as rapiers or crossbows. RNG modifiers, however, can somewhat change a weapon's playstyle and mechanics. Although the game does feature the basic modifiers, such as piercing shots or extra damage percentages, it also has double damage dealt and taken modifiers, as well as modifiers that activate a skill when used, such as throwing grenades. This form of RNG never felt like a hindrance during my playthroughs. If anything, I welcomed it and the variety it offered. Although the game only currently offers around 50 items, this form of RNG manages to make each playthrough feel fresh and unique. It's important to take into consideration, however, that although the maps are procedurally generated, the rooms themselves are not. Play long enough and you're likely to see patterns begin to emerge, which isn't a bad thing in my opinion. If anything, it's an important aspect to a Souls-like game. This is a game that, like many other Souls-likes, tests your skill and patience as a player. The main difference with Dead Cells, however, is that death is not the end. As you kill enemies, you'll earn things called cells, which can be used at the end of levels to unlock weapons and bonuses, as well as upgrade the power of current weapons. The great thing about this is that not only do you power up your weapons and unlock more health potions, but every weapon you unlock gets dropped instantly for you to use and try on your playthrough. Each death not only grants you experience as a player, but allows you to start fresh, with better, more powerful gear available to you. As you become better at the game, you'll unlock different routes to progress through. There are currently 3 routes: the normal route, the vine route, and the tomb route. The difficulty difference between the normal and tomb routes is fairly substantial, with areas such as the prison depths having enemies on par with the second to last level, who can very easily one-shot you if you're not careful. The game rewards your efforts, however, with gear of higher tier than you'd otherwise get through something like the ramparts, which in turn will make defeating the bosses and finishing the game far easier than it would be otherwise. This grants you a huge advantage, so long as you're skilled enough as a player to make it through. An important aspect to this type of game, however, is to make the player feel constantly at fault for dying. I made a video on the psychology behind this called The Art of Failure that you can watch here if you want to learn more. Although the game generally manages failure very well, there have been times where I felt like my skill as a player wasn't the deciding factor. Not having the proper weapons to deal with the situation at hand is a great example. When the game essentially pits you up against an army of different enemies that you're entirely unprepared for, it's easy to become overwhelmed. These situations, however, are far and few between. During my 15+ hours of gameplay, there were maybe only 2 or 3 instances where I truly felt as though the game left me unprepared for the challenges I would soon face. As you unlock new weapons and begin going through more difficult routes, this feeling of helplessness soon fades. This is where I started to notice just how much more fast-paced this game is compared to the more methodical gameplay of traditional Soul-like games. Which isn't to say that this game doesn't require its fair share of strategic play. Things such as elite enemies and bosses definitely require you to go into the fight with a clear idea as to how you're going to beat them. You also have the option to rush through rooms in order to get time-locked doors in other levels that hold a large amount of gold, allowing you to purchase better gear from shops. The most strategic aspect of the game, however, would be the secret runes you'll occasionally come across that open a portal to a special map. This map provides you with the challenge of getting to the end in a certain amount of time, while killing every enemy along the way. The catch, however, is that you can't get hit, or you get teleported outside. Personally, I've never made it to the end of these maps. However, it's always a fun challenge to try. As I said previously, this game surpassed my every expectation. Everything from the gorgeous pixel art to the beautifully fluid animations and combat system just works. And with a new update coming out around the end of May introducing new items and elemental mechanics, I'm excited to see exactly how this game evolves. Thank you for watching. I hope this video was helpful, and if it was, consider checking out my Discord or Patreon, or maybe just subscribing. I'll see you next time.